Sorry. Thank you.
All right. Gordon. So let me start by saying that one of my favorite parts of the filmmaker visits that we have and scholar visits that we have is the interview portion. Usually it's part of the itinerary separate where it's just me and you
Hmm.
one-on-one in the seminar room where you were doing some research. So it's like a very like it feels like a very like sacred space, very intimate. The filmmakers talked to me, or really the archive, about their journey and about their work, and I've just really come to cherish those moments. So this is a little different to have folks listening in, but as Dr. Lawrence mentioned earlier, it's an intimate and like mighty audience that we have. It's very special. So I'm happy to have y'all here with us during this time, and there will be space for y'all to ask questions too towards the end. So first, Gordon, how are you feeling after screening the example, and they will talk about it here at the BFCA.
As I mentioned before to the staff, it's probably going to take me weeks, months, a couple of years to just kind of wrap my head around, coming here to the Film Center and Archive and being able to see the work of people that I grew up admiring, but to also know that my colleagues and I created projects that will be in this repository. So sitting at the back of the room and watching the films, and being here, it's an overwhelming feeling of abundance, and felt extremely blessed to be able to represent our little corner of the world there in Southeast Texas through these projects.
Yeah, bringing it to another small corner of the world here in Bloomington, but a place where folks from all over the world come to do research because we have materials that aren't anywhere else in the world. There are people coming in from Germany or wherever else just because it's something here. So I think that it's a beautiful thing to add your work to our archive. So are you actually born and raised from Beaumont, Texas?
No, I'm actually from a town north of Houston named
Okay.
Cleveland, Texas. So it's about an hour away
Okay,
from
so
Houston and
tell
an
me,
hour away from Beaumont.
okay, could you tell me about your journey to Beaumont and like what got you so invested in the history of it then?
So as a 6-year-old, I was sitting on the floor watching TV and watching movies and just kind of wondered how everything came together. So that led me to go to Lamar University after graduating high school to get a degree in communication, emphasis in broadcasting. So during that time, I had a TV show called G Sharp, and it was a music video entertainment program. So we were like the MTV for Beaumont at the time. So we would, excuse me, interview celebrities and play music videos and go out to events in the community and cover that. That led to an internship at Black Entertainment Television. So that time in college kind of formed my love for. I could see my dream was closer, and I'm passionate about creativity. So that just kind of led me to pursue film and filmmaking and writing screenplays. I remember buying the screenplay for Soul Food and didn't have any screenwriting software, but my little Word document, I would mimic what was on the screen. And that's kind of how I got started writing scripts.
Um, so then your time in Beaumont at Lamar University, you were starting to look for stories that were actually in the community there.
Actually, started out doing more romantic comedies and romantic
Mm.
dramas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then I came across a line in a book that's actually here that talked about old movie posters and said there were race riots in Detroit, Los Angeles, and Beaumont, Texas in 1943. And that was the only line. So I told my colleagues about it because, again, this is not something we learned about in Texas history. So we started digging and started working on a documentary for the 1943 Beaumont race riot. But documentaries, once they lose steam, it's kind of hard to pick it back up. So 10 years later or so, we decided that my colleagues and I, Wyatt Cagle, who's the director of the example, and Kenneth Dupuy, who's the producer, they were both entering fatherhood, which forced me to think about my relationship with my father. So we took those elements of fatherhood, created a fictional story along with the research from the race riot. And that's kind of how the example came to be.
Sure, yeah. What's the name of that book that you were reading?
A Separate Cinema, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
So yes, I was actually able to see it again today.
Yeah.
So
like a full circle moment a little
I'm
bit.
having a lot of full circle moments within the last 9 days or so. So
Wow.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Those romantic comedies, though, you gotta you can't just slip that by us. Where are they? You know, you can always add to your collection here at the BSCA.
They're on YouTube.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so
What?
well, no, again, I have some filmmaker friends that will not put their early work up for anything whatsoever, but I kind of do it to show the students that I work with at Lamar University. This is where I started. You see improvement from one project to the next project, and that should be the goal. So I can show them. First film was called A Dance, and it was about this guy who stopped on the side of the road and danced with his girlfriend in the rain.
You gotta have the rain.
But understand, the rain was a water hose pointed in the air.
Yeah, it was.
But again, just to see how that event affected other people that were kind of watching them and that kind of stuff. So I think that was the first 6-page script that I tried to write. So
that you did write.
That I did write.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the start.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm gonna have to look that up.
So yes, there's a couple of romantic comedies. I did my version of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner called Do You, and then the history thing got hot. So my focus the past couple of years have been documentaries and The Example. Yeah. So we released The Example in 2016, and for some reason, it keeps coming back up just due to things that are happening in society. So as filmmakers, we're pleased that people are seeing the work, but it's because of the social ills that are happening that the work is relevant.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see yourself returning to romantic comedies, or does this feel like the work right now and you want to continue telling these harder social issue stories?
I just want to create.
You just want to create.
So currently have a short titled She Loves Her John, which is about betrayal and infidelity. It's just 7 minutes long, but I've been in the history documentary world for a number of years, and it gets heavy. So I just needed to do like short narrative to breathe and kind of flex that muscle.
Absolutely.
And then there's other historical projects that I hope to work on in the near future.
Okay, yeah. I got a couple more questions, and then I'll hand it over. I won't hog. So you mentioned your students at Lamar University. I know that for certain that they helped on the crew maybe they were on screen too for
A
They
few
Will
of
Talk
them,
About Us.
yes.
Yeah, could you talk about how you get them to collaborate on the projects?
So we were fortunate. ExxonMobil actually approached the Department of Communication wanting to give students a hands-on opportunity to develop skills. So they asked us to create the documentary and also agreed to fund it as well. So students actually got handled and they got paid. The most rewarding bit of that project for me was the bond that these two different generations built while they were on set. The younger students, the emotion that you saw on screen, those students were crying as well because they were touched by what these people had been through. But the people from Charlton-Pollard had a respect for these students because they put the time and the hard work in to be able to tell their story. So that night at the Jefferson Theater, when we premiered the film for the 350 people,
Mm-hmm.
most of the audience is wearing blue and white. For those students to be on that stage and feel the love from the work that they did, that's the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I was going to ask about next. What was the experience of screening these films in Beaumont? Because yeah, as you mentioned, we saw the emotion on screen with the interviewees, um, and I could just imagine the folks who weren't interviewed, how it felt for them to watch the story on screen. What about like those Q&As and
So, especially with the Charlton Pollard
yeah.
documentary, this type of work, it allows people to be seen. We've had the opportunity to take this project to film festivals and other universities to show the work. And when you have people of a lighter hue that say they wish they would have went to Charlton-Pollard,
Mm-hmm.
that lets us know that we're creating a universal story.
Mm-hmm.
During question and answer sessions, we're having conversations about their particular neighborhood and where they grew up and the similarities and stuff. So that's a unifying bond that I feel like film has the opportunity to create. Taking this project and doing screenings kind of feel like the example rips your heart out, but it's the Charlton Pollard documentary that heals you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're they're both about community, commonality, and humanity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anybody out in the audience have questions?
I was curious about how desegregation affected the Beaumont community, because there's a moment in the documentary with reference to like when the school closed. We see the clipping of saying that because of desegregation that they were closing the school. Um, that was in the 70s, right? Right. So like I was wondering what happened in this interim period, and like what did integration look like in the community, more generally?
So Beaumont was late to the desegregation. So at that time in the 70s, Beaumont had 5 different high schools. Uh, they went from 5 to maybe 2 or 3, and then the early 80s, they went to 2 schools. So it took a long time for desegregation to happen. Um, I have never gotten a clear answer on why the school was exactly shut down. There's rumors, there's hearsay, but there's nothing concrete and substantial. As far as the neighborhood not being the same, when you don't have the opportunity to go out and experience other restaurants or other things in other places, there's that natural curiosity to where you want to go and see all these things. So a lot of people took their dollars into other communities. But other communities did not necessarily come back
Mhm.
into
Yeah.
the Charlton-Pollard community. So can you blame people for wanting to experience something new or different? But I think there's a way that you can still sustain your community while this is happening. So because of this project, because of the example, there's been more of a movement in Southeast Texas to want to tell these historical events and stories. There's talk about having a Southeast Texas African American museum there. So I think these projects are causing people to see the value in who they are. And they want to know more and they want to put it out there for the world to see. Is that close enough? Thank you.
Dr.
So,
Lawrence?
thank you for being here again and for sharing your film. I had a question about each, if that's okay. I don't want to hold up time. But the first, I'm wondering, how long did the riot last in Beaumont that, that the filming example was kind of based on?
The city was under martial law for 3 days. So Beaumont was a huge shipbuilding manufacturer for World War II. So over 200,000 man hours were lost during production of ships. 3 people died. 2,000, 2,500 black people left town immediately and didn't come back. So knowing how many people were actually injured, we don't know. I'm still hearing stories here and there. Black people and white people are still uncomfortable about talking about this event. When we premiered this film, there were people in the community saying, "Why are you telling this story? Why are you bringing this up?" I think it's important history that needs to be shared. I wish I can't guess how this event affected Beaumont, like in the long term. But I think it definitely had a major, it shook racial relations there in the community for decades.
Yeah, I don't see how it could.
Hmm.
And that you mentioned this departure, and I'll just ask this, and then let somebody else have it instead of my other question. I can come back. But you are doing this work in Texas.
Yes.
What is, because you mentioned great reception of films, but do you encounter any resistance in making this beyond kind of like, why are you bringing this up? Like are there challenges, limitations? What have your experiences been like shooting something like The Example?
So we shot The Example, the night scenes in Terrell Park, which is owned by the city. So when we started saying we were going to do this, I walked into the mayor's office and met with the city manager. And before I placed my binder down, they was like, whatever we need to do to help you get this made, we're going to do that. So the city of Beaumont was helpful in providing locations and allowing us to tell this story, which people were very surprised by. When we got into production and we started getting media attention, the internet comment sections were very entertaining. Everything from why are you letting these Hollywood filmmakers come down and tell this story? And it's just like, no, we're from the Piney Woods. We're like, we're down the street.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start a racial war about telling this story. It's those kind of things. But it's something that I'm mindful of as far as even going around and displaying the films at this current time. So And also with the historical marker going to be in existence within the next year and a half or two, I'm wondering what the response is going to be from people that don't necessarily see the value in sharing this history. You're welcome.
So how, coming from the area, just to FYI, a lot of this history I didn't know. The race riots I've had, I think, Gordon, right? When you started production, kind of educated me and a lot of my friends about, oh wow, this happened. And that history is like, and I get a sense it's fading, right? Because the older generation is going. How important is it to try to rush to save this before it, all goes away? And do you think how many years do you think we have before a lot of this generation might not, these stories might be gone forever?
As far as the race riot, a lot of the people that I'm talking to about it, they were young children during the actual riot. So a lot of the information is going away. We had a screening at Prairie View A&M University, and there were students going to school there, and they were not aware of this history at all. So they said as soon as they were leaving the screening, they were going to call their parents and be like, hey, why didn't you tell me about this? So again, I think it's just having those conversations that's important. Having a chance to be in the history discipline a little bit more. I would like to be a bridge between historians and content creators because I feel like there's a gap there that needs to be filled. They have amazing stories. We know how to tell stories. Let's be friends. I tell people all the time, you don't need a big camera. You don't need a lot of lights. Grab your cell phone. Have a conversation with a family member. That's your family history. Have a conversation with somebody in your community. This is all history. We put adjectives in front of it. Family, state, whatever. It's all history. And it's all a part of the fabric of who we are. So don't overthink it. Just do it.
You had a clip from a home movie in the They Will Talk About Us film, and like that material is it's holding information that's just as valuable as holding personality.
Well, in collecting that history, one of the interviewees, Lynn Simon, he had a terabyte of footage that he had been collecting about the Charlton-Pollard neighborhood for decades. So he was the gold mine that allowed us to be able to tell the story. Because we could not find an end to the community, but we could drop his name and people would start giving information. So again, you might not think it matters, and I hate to be morbid about this, but there are a lot of historical things that family members have that are important, and when they pass on, we're quick just to throw a whole bunch of stuff in the trash or throw it away. Those are pieces of history, paraphernalia from high school or else. They have value.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, we also have to take some responsibility ourselves to let people know what to do with our things.
Correct.
So like even you donating your work to the BFCA is part of that, right? And if you would like to donate more, let folks know, let us know. That way, again, not to be morbid, but when your time comes, people know what to do with your things, and it's not a question, oh, this isn't worth anything, this hard drive or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just gotta make it known what's important to us and where we want it to go.
So I hear this from my parents all the time, but I don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So my creativity is kind of going to be my legacy.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure my DNA and who I am is a part of it all. So the fact that it's going to be a part of this repository, my creative work, still searching for words. So again, thank you.
Did you tell your parents?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And they're extremely happy. They will still like grandkids, but they're extremely proud. And because of this work, I actually had the opportunity to get a congressional commendation. So again, it's the power of telling these stories.
Yeah.
It's the power of filmmaking. We have a lot more power than we sometimes people realize we have or people value through telling stories.
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Yes.
So, as you said, you got to sit here and view it yourself, and this is a special moment for you in your career. So, my question to you is, what is your ultimate message behind both these films, and what historic lessons can we take into today's political and racial climate? What would you want to leave people with after they view this film?
Just as far as filmmaking, I think I want to say if you can entertain, you can inform and educate. I think people miss that at times. As far as message in this creative climate, both of these films are about community. It's about commonality. And it's about finding the humanity in others. So I use the phrase common. I say people of a lighter hue
You said it
or
earlier.
a darker hue.
Okay, good.
So God is light, and with God is in us, we're all different shades of that light and different. So we're all human. So if we respect that God is in somebody else, when we see that commonality, when we see that humanity, how can you not be kind and polite to others? So again, I just want people to see the commonality, see the humanity, and connect with one another. And creativity gives us that opportunity.
Thank you. I have two other questions, but I'll let other people ask first.
Deborah?
Please,
Yes.
go ahead, yes. I mean, we'll kind of round out, we got about, 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I wonder, you sort of touched on it a bunch of times, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about or if you could talk a little bit about the choice between dramatizing versus doing more historical record. So the documentary versus sort of taking a more dramatic or fictional approach. Like, what do you see as the differences, similarities, pros, cons?
Resources play into it all. Some people were disappointed when we wrote the script. For the example, we had a script reading with people in the community, and they were like, we want to see thousands of people going down the street and all this kind of stuff and setting stuff on fire. And it's just like, we're independent filmmakers. We don't have that kind of money. Insurance is expensive. But what we could do is tell a very niche story about this group of people and how they dealt with the events going on around them. So we knew we could afford 3 days of shooting. We had the city of Beaumont helping. We had a friend, the house that we shot in Orange, Texas, that house was 100+ years old. It worked perfectly. We raised $10,000. The rest we put in ourselves. But the community supported us in the sense of the guys with the classic cars. Hey, we don't have a lot of money. We can pay you this much to come out for a night. And people are like, shooting a movie, Southeast Texas, whatever. I'll make a couple of bucks. The guy stayed with us every day of production. He even brought friends because, like, hey, my car is going to be in a movie.
Yeah.
But again,
You have more mouths to feed, though.
that is true. But it would still be cheaper than paying the real cost of getting those classic cars. So again, it's all about resources. With the documentary, Exxon was gracious enough to give that money to the department. So we had more flexibility. But we still shot for 3 days. Feel like I'm a writer by birth, producer by trade, and a director by necessity.
Mm.
So 3 days, we shot 4 interviews on each day, and then we shot those interstitials on another day. So again, being able to be in a situation to where if I can produce and create the right environment, I feel pretty good about that situation. So it's just all about resources, and sometimes documentaries can get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to control all the variables. So whether it's short films or documentaries, it's all about the resources that you're working with at the time. I hope that gave you somewhat what you wanted as an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to close us out with your last 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is to both of you in general, I suppose, but either you can answer. First, who's your favorite Black woman civil rights leader, speaker, or advocate in history or currently?
Wow.
My favorite? You know, I really appreciate the work that you did with the documentary because it was highlighting people who are in the actual community that people knew who were making change and touching people's lives in ways that, yeah, maybe not the entire world or everybody in the US knows their name, but they mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying at the beginning, they mattered. So I think about people in my own community growing up. I think about my great grandmother who worked at the VA in my hometown in Little Rock, Arkansas, which we have stories that are kind of like Charlton-Pollard.
Mm-hmm.
We have a West 9th Street. My grandmother tells me stories about the business district there and the movie theater that was ran by Black people on West 9th Street. So I think about those folks back at home. Of course, I could say Rosa Parks or Angela Davis, but also Donna Campbell.
Thank you.
I hate to steal your answer, but I kind of feel that way. So, for example, my grandmother her and my grandfather owned a cab stand in the Black community there in Cleveland, Texas. So for over 50 years, this was the longest running Black business there in my town of Cleveland, Texas. So it echoes Charlton-Pollard. It wasn't the best business model, but my grandmother would allow people to get food and stuff on credit.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that was the community to make sure that people were taken care of. So at one point in time, this cab stand was also a diner. You could also get car fix there. There were apartments attached to it. So again, this space serviced the entire community. And she worked there until she was 88, 89.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
What's her name?
Rachel Scott. And they actually named the street after her.
That was beautiful.
So again, my mother went to University of Texas. She was one of the first blacks to go there. Clyde Williams. So again, there's people that I see in my life, too many to name. But again, they're a part of the history, a part of this fabric, and those stories should be shared.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing each of your personal history. I was like, you don't need to, but it's great that you did. And it means a lot to be in the presence of it, so I thank you for that. And my last question is similar. So what historically overlooked Black voices do you believe today should be heard?
Ladies first.
I'm always thinking about the Black Film Center and Archive. Of course, we have like the big names. We have their work here, but we also have student films or like films that were never even like produced that are here in the BFCA, in the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. There are folks who were submitting their films for a contest. And once the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame folded, they donated all of their materials to us. So there are folks who, may have gone on to, different lives or continued an independent filmmaking career. Yeah, we have those materials here. We have early parts of people's stories here. And I would encourage you and everybody else, even people who are not in this room too, to come and just explore what's here. The big names and the names that you don't know yet.
Yeah, I was mostly thinking of the ones that I don't know because,
Absolutely.
of course, like, all history is, of course, filtered through the white lens. So, like, it's most Black voices are historically overlooked except for the ones they like. So, I just, not that I'm trying to make anybody feel weird, of course, or just stating what's obvious.
Yeah, we want you to come back. Yeah, please do.
Well, I feel like Black people are not a monolith. So I feel like lift every voice.
Of course,
There is stuff that is created that I may not be a fan of, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be seen or heard. But again, that's a part of all the hues that are out there.
right.
And people have the opportunity to decide what they want to look into. There are some stories that I may not personally connect with because that's not my experience, but it may be somebody else's,
Sure.
and that has value. So if I'm looking at movies and stuff as a child and they had such an influence on me, who knows what that piece of music or art or film, you never know what that's doing to somebody else in the world and what they may create later on in life because of it. So there's enough room for everybody to be seen and be heard. It's unfortunate that we have to convince other people that that's so, but I feel like we have to create the work. If people are late to the game and recognizing it, that's on them, but it's still there. So the Black Film Center and Archive is here. So, thank you. Thank you. Great job.
Absolutely fantastic. Again, thank you for joining us here, being a part of our Black History Month events and showcasing and giving us insight into these oft overlooked but very important history. For those of you all who are new to the BFCA, there's people like Gordon and other filmmakers who make this place run. Please know we're going to have lots of other events coming up this month. SSU I'm blanking kind of on
Oh, yeah.
our next one.
We
Can you
got
help me
events
out?
all throughout
Yeah.
the month of
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
Well, we have partnerships, including every Tuesday at IU Cinema. There's an Afrofuturism series that's going. So there's a show at 7 o'clock tonight. And then we have another partnership with Latino Studies this Friday. We have Dr. Camila Martin coming in from Charleston College to do a lecture, and it's paired with a screening of In Our Mother's Gardens, which is a documentary. So it's on Valentine's Day, but we're showing love to mothers with that film screening and with that lecture. But the next BFCA proper event is the Emerging Scholars and Artists. We have our first guest, Dr. Grace Gibson, on February 18th. Is that Tuesday of next week?
Yeah, that's next Tuesday. Yeah.
Exactly, 1 week
That's right.
away.
Yeah.
I believe that's at 3 o'clock as well.
That's
So
right.
please join us.
And then tomorrow, an event surrounding the film Her Story.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So many.
As you can see, this is why I go. Can you help me out here? Because we have a lot. And again, it's because of people like Gordon Williams that we're able to do all of this. So please join me again, giving him one more round of applause. Final words?
Again, thank you for this opportunity, and please support this wonderful center and what they do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.